Good morning. In many cultures and faiths, religions of the world, there are archetypal stories that teach us about life. And many of these stories are about journey. There's the particular mythological stories of the journey, the two journeys of life. The first journey, the journey outwards, away from home, usually associated with youth, young adulthood. The journey of becoming. It's driven by ego and ambition, the desire to experience life and build a sense of identity. It's about leaving home and going out in the world and pushing against all the boundaries and rules of the world. To find who we are, to explore different persona and to find what one fits. To build the container of our life. It's often typified by rebellion and risk. And we see it in so many young people's lives. The second journey is quite different. If the first one's leaving home, the second one is coming back. If the first one's about building the container of our lives, trying to discover our identity, the second journey is about filling that container with what's really important. Things like relationship and reconciliation, the recognition that it's better to be in relationship than to be right. It sees through the eyes of compassion. It lives more simply. It recognises that the one who dies with the most toys doesn't win, but just leaves the most behind. That having more and more and more stuff is a burden to us and ties us down. And that we should share. We should let go of the control that we think we have over life and experience a new way of being. It's a way of growing into wisdom and maturity, relationship, peace, justice, and it's a way of spirit, of growing deeper, more spiritual in our being, in our life. But these two journeys don't automatically happen. You don't automatically go from one to the other. There's a period of transformation, of shift from this journey and this persona or this outlook, worldview to this new one. And it usually goes through suffering. A great suffering will transform us if we sit with that suffering and allow it to work within us, to humble us. It may be the death of someone close to us or the loss of relationship or the onset of a serious illness ourselves or someone close. It may be the end of a dream or a job or career or something. Something that causes us pain and suffering, humbles us, and we recognise we're not in control. We don't know what to do. We can't make it right in our own strength. We need help from beyond us, from other people, and ultimately from that which exists beyond humanity, beyond the world, that which we call the sacred, the holy, God. It is this path of opening ourselves to a new way. But it's not only suffering, it may come through a deep experience of love that opens up, pushes our ego down and to the side and opens our ego boundary to embrace another intimately. It humbles us and we're vulnerable. And we recognise the world, that life's not just about us. It includes another and others and opens us up. Or it may be through an experience of awe and wonder. I've spoken before of that deep sense of awe I felt when I first held my children. Profound and wondrous. It's humbling and you recognise you're not very big in this world, in this universe. You're very small and not so much insignificant, but powerless, helpless even, before this sense of awe and wonder, before the sacred and holy in the life. And there's something deeper and richer in life than pursuing dreams and of wealth and power and success and all the other things that people chase. It's only as we engage with these experiences of awe and wonder or deep love or suffering that we have the potential to change. And if we don't engage with that, if we're not open to this second journey that's humbling and vulnerable and different, we drive on in life driven by ego and ambition and drive. And we see this in many of the leaders of our world leaders, corporate leaders, religious leaders even, who are still ego-driven, who are narcissistic, whose arrogance gets them into the place that they are, who don't have the wisdom of life, who push all the boundaries continually, and they see themselves as the centre of their own universe, the most important person in the world. We see this particularly in people like Donald Trump, and all the stories that are told by those who know him just reveal this immaturity, this lack of wisdom, this lack of engaging with the depth of life, of suffering, of love, of awe and wonder, of being humbled and becoming wise and mature. Like Nelson Mandela, who through the crucible of suffering, 27 years of imprisonment, was changed from an angry, young, ego-driven man into a wise and profound man who led a nation through the potential pitfalls of civil war into at least a phase of peace where they could start to rebuild and start again. We see the arrogant, ego-driven narcissism of Vladimir Putin and the danger he presents to the world through his violence and his seeking more power and control. This is what happens when we're not pushed through suffering, through love, through awe and wonder into this second journey. And this week, Luke tells a story or a parable that Jesus tells. An iconic story that's well known, the so-called Prodigal Son. The man whose father has two sons. The younger says, "Dad, as time's come, I need to leave home. Give me my share of the inheritance and let me go on my way." In other words, I wish you were dead so I can just go off into the world. Leave me the money that I would get. And the father complies, and the son goes off into the world and has a great time, pushes against all the boundaries, takes risks. It's wine, women and song. It's a great time, parties every night, everything's wonderful, until it isn't. Until he wakes up one day and realises he has nothing. There's no money in his pocket, his friends have all gone, there's nothing. The parties are over. And life becomes real and hard and harsh in this world. And he finds himself spiralling downwards till he finds himself at the lowest point. A Jewish boy feeding pigs. And recognising that the pigs have it better than him. And in his pain and suffering, he dreams of home and the memory of home, where in his father's household, even the servants were treated well and had enough to eat. And he comes to his senses and he says, "I'm going to go home. I'm going to confess to my father and beg him to allow me to be a servant in his household. It's got to be better than this. It's worth a try." And so he makes the journey home, the long journey, the second journey. And the miracle for me in this story is that when we shift from the boy to the father, back home, every day this boy's been gone, the father goes out and looks down the road to see if this is the day when his son will come to his senses and turn and come home. Every day he looks out, and this one day he looks out and there's a figure in the distance, and it looks familiar. And he watches, and as it gets closer, he realises, yes, this is my son, this is my boy, he's coming home. And he runs, and I just picture him running and staggering and falling over himself almost to get to this boy. And when he gets there, he throws himself on the boy and wraps his arms around the boy and cries, "My son, my son, my son, my son." And after a bit, the boy pushes back and falls to his knees and says, "Father," he's prepared speech, "Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer fit to be called your son. Please treat me as one of your hired servants." But before he even finishes that, the father says, "Son, son, son, don't you understand? You're my son. You've always been my son. Even when you didn't want to be my son, even when you rejected me, even when you wished me dead, you were still my son. come home and belong. And the boy is accepted into the household. He finds his life. He finds home again as if for the first time and recognises this is where he belongs. This is life in relationship, simply. That the world has much to offer, but there are many dangers. And it's not always cracked up. It's not always what it's cracked up to be. It's not always good and proper. And so this story has another son, an older son, who discovers this brother who's wasted money on wine, women and song and rejected dad and all that, left him alone to do all the work. He's home and he's treated to a party. And he's angry and he won't go in, and the father tries to reason with him, but son, everything I have is yours. You've experienced peace and life. You haven't had the trials and tribulations. You haven't had the suffering of this other boy, my son. Why are you like this? Come in. Life for you is good. But the older son doesn't quite get it. It's still about him. And I think these two sons represent us and this father, this grace of God, this deep grace of God, that regardless of who we are, what we've done, where we are, somehow, in the mystery and wonder of God, we are loved and we're children. And there's nothing we can do, say, think, believe, not do, not say, not think, not believe, that will stop God loving us or make God love us more. And I think this is a beautiful story for our world.